Where are you?
I'm in Minneapolis.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm in the middle of it. I'm still in Hollywood. I'm still working. I'm, another chapter in my career. I hope to be directing this month, and that's a new adventure. So I've been doing it a long time, and it's been a great journey. But the road ain't ended yet. What about you? Is this where you became a journalist on Instagram?
Well, I've been doing interviews since last summer, but I didn't start doing it for that account until, I don't know, like a few months ago. But I just did Rosanna Arquette, and
I worked with Rosanna. She's a beautiful girl, fantastic actress. We played lovers in Hope Floats.
Oh yeah, that's right.
No, I never thought about pursuing acting. I went to the Culinary Institute. I had a great job in Manhattan. I put myself in a great position to go work in Marseille. One of the chefs I was working under, his brother had a restaurant in Marseille, and I was on my way. I was, very excited. I spoke enough kitchen French that I could get along. And that was my hopes and dreams, to someday come back to New York and have a American French restaurant. But when I was working in a restaurant on 74th and Columbus, a place called Cafe Europa, the cooks got off, I could leave the restaurant at 11 o'clock. And I had a girlfriend who was a cocktail waitress down on 67th in Columbus. So every night after work, I would go down and hang out and wait for her to get off of work. But what I didn't realize is that it was kind of a show business bar, because it was right across the street from ABC, where they filmed and broadcast the news.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Roger Grimsby and Bill Beutel would be in there in between shows, and the Grip and Electric from Madison Square Garden and Broadway were all hanging out there. The Westies used to hang out there. So to me, it was just where my girlfriend worked. But there was also an agent who hung out there. Her name was Yvette Bickoff, who I am still in contact with once in a while. She now lives in Palm Springs. She started sitting down next to me and asking me if I was in the entertainment industry, if I was an actor or a model or a dancer or anything like that. And no, I was just Anita's boyfriend. And she thought that I should at least entertain the idea. I honestly thought she was just hitting on me because, that's the way things happen sometimes. But it turns out that she really was an agent. And I said, look, I work 6 days a week. And she said, there's a class you can go to during the day. It was a guy who taught the Meisner method, Robert Modick, in Carnegie Hall. And I said, well, I'm not going to pay to study acting. And she said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. So I went to my first class. And there's a thing in New York, if you're a cook, all the chef, whatever the fuck you want to call them, all the waitresses are either dancers, models, actresses, singers. They're all in the performing arts. And they're all these beautiful girls. And they won't talk to a cook because you're just a cook, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to acting class, that's like the great equalizer. The hot chicks will talk to a guy who's flat broke if he's good in class, if he gets up and does interesting work. So I went to class, and, to be honest, once I figured out how to get over stage fright, I didn't find the work that difficult. Me and my brother were living together on 74th Street. He was, he was studying English literature. So, I'm Irish Catholic. So there was a lot of literature around my family. So once I got over stage fright and understood the work of what it took to really act, I think I was relatively good at it. So when you're good in class, chicks want to have coffee with you afterwards. They want to work with you. And then, one thing leads to another. Before you know it, you're banging some fucking beautiful girls, right? So that was my big attraction. But me and my family, my grandparents left everybody, all their grandchildren, $300, right? It's big inheritance, right? But it was enough for me to take a summer off. And we moved to Soho before it was a chic neighborhood. We lived above a box factory on Green Street in 1978, I think it was. and we could pay the rent for the whole summer, me and my bro. And over that summer, I went to class 3 days a week. I was doing a lot of work in class, and I was starting to get auditions. I auditioned on Broadway. Oh. And, you know, I didn't get it, of course, but, you know, it was like I was really in the game. And there came a time where I did a student film with another girl in class. And she reached out to me recently. It's funny how, you know, that happens. But anyway, she called me up one evening and said, Michael, you want to meet me for dinner? And I said, yeah, sure, where? And she said, at the Laurent. And I said, oh, that's a great restaurant, because I knew guys who worked all over the city. So I go to meet her at the restaurant, and it's with dinner with Salvador Dali. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a very big, one of the coolest people in the world at the time, right?
Yeah.
And this big table of 15, 16 people. And Salvador Dali's wife waved me over and said, no, you're sitting next to me. So I sit down next to her. And, you know, just light conversation about the food. And it's a real freak show. There's all kinds of people there with, you know, at Salvador Dali's table. But Mia Farrow is sitting on my right. And Gala Dali sitting on my left. And Vivian is sitting across from me, who's this knockout, you know, Mexican model. She's from Mexico City. She's very chic. Her father was an ambassador. Like, this was the girl I knew from class. So anyway, Gala Dali, she said, look me in the eye, right? So I look her in the eye, and she says, and she says, show me your hand. And she looks in my hand. And then she picks a flower off the table, and she's doing this thing with these flower petals. And I said, so what's this all about? She says, within 6 months, a woman is going to come into your life, and you will become a national name. I said, what do you mean? She says, I don't know, but in 6 months, you will be known across the country. And I said, okay, fine. You know, I mean, these are all crazy people. She was a Russian expatriate. You know, when the Tsar, you know, when they went to communists, she escaped with the family jewels, and she found Salvador Dali on the beach in Barcelona.
Oh, wow.
Right? So he was just this broke painter. I mean, he was still Salvador Dali, but nobody knew who he was until she got a hold of him. So apparently she had some kind of gift, because within 6 months, this woman came into Hollywood, into New York. And it was like, you know, in all the papers, that Joyce Selznick, the daughter of David O. Selznick, who made Gone with the Wind, right?
Yep.
Joyce Selznick's in town, and she's doing a talent search for ABC's talent development program. And I called my agent, and I said, you're going to get me in? And Yvette said, oh, Michael, I can't get you in. Every agent in town is only allowed to get 2 clients. And I said, but Yvette. And she said, Michael, I'm sorry. I've got some other clients that are, you know, their chances are better. I knew who she was sending in. So I followed him in on his audition. So I wasn't supposed to be there. My name wasn't on the list. But I went in up the elevator, and the halls are full of all these actors. And, you know, it's very exciting, because she's a very famous casting director. And she was the youngest woman to ever run a studio, Columbia Studios, when she was 22. So she was a big, powerful person in Hollywood. So I sneak in, and the sides, which are the scenes that you're going to get to audition with, there's a table full of those. So I just grab a couple, and I'm sitting there reading it. And this woman comes walking out with a cane, you know, and she looks at me, and she goes back in. And then, you know, I'm thinking, oh, geez, I got caught, right? They're going to throw me out. So she comes back out with her partner, Jan McCormick, and she says, what are you doing here? And I said, I want to audition. She says, I'm running this show. I'll be right back. And she goes back into the office. And out comes her partner, Jan McCormick. And she says, Michael, here's our number. Call us tonight. We're going to take you to Hollywood, okay? And I said, what do you mean? She says, we're going to put you on tape. We're going to take you to Hollywood. You're the guy we're looking for. So like about a week later, I got a talent development contract with ABC, which means they gave me $10,000, a round trip first class ticket to Hollywood, and 2 weeks in a hotel on the corner of Hollywood Boulevard and what was it? Highland and Hollywood Boulevard. So I wake up in the hotel, I open the curtains, and there's the Hollywood sign, the famous Hollywood sign. That's what was the view out my window. And it was like, holy cow, this isn't a dream. I'm really here. So I get an apartment. They give me 2 weeks, and they paid for everything in the hotel. I ordered 3 meals a day, drink all the wine I wanted. Stephen Cannell picked me up for lunch. And it turns out that Stephen Cannell was going to put me on Greatest American Hero to play Tony Villacama.
Yep.
That was my first job. That was the first time I got paid for acting. And the show ran for 2 years. The theme song was was #1 in the country for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It's running on syndication now, as a matter of fact. And if you see the pilot episode, that's me. My first day on film is my scene with Robert Culp, where I pull my switchblade on him.
Yep.
It's the first time I was ever on a set. So that's pretty much how it all started.
And with Greatest American Hero, how long did it take before you got comfortable with what you were doing?
Well, I had been studying all that time. As soon as I, got my apartment, I got into acting class and I hired a coach to prepare me to shoot the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's one of those things, like sink or swim. I got thrown in the pool and I fucking swam.
Yep. And how was your, what did you learn the most from William Catt?
Hitting marks, not stepping on other people's lines, not blocking their light, that kind of stuff. And timing. Billy Catt comes from a long line of like comedic actors. Alan Hale Jr. His mom, it's like he's like 4th or 5th generation, success in Hollywood. He was a great guy. He was a real gentleman and friendly with me. Robert Culp kind of took me under his wing in a sense that he was nice to me because, he must have been about 50. So he was a little bit grouchy that he wasn't the headliner. He was like second. Mm-hmm. But, I had this natural ability to recognize the people that you should respect, and when somebody feels entitled to respect and they don't have to command it, they don't have to, demand it, they naturally respect you for respecting them. It's like you got to understand the pecking order. Who's the lead, who's the star, who are the power brokers, who's got the money, who's the talent, all that stuff. I have a good sense about that.
I know that you did a lot of publicity, photos and everything for that show with Faye Grant. Were you guys friends in real life too?
Yeah. Faye, let's see. I lived on Beechwood Canyon, right on Beechwood Canyon, going up to the Hollywood sign. Mm-hmm. And Faye lived on the street off of there. So Faye would come down her street and come past my house. I'd jump in her car. We'd pick up Don Cervantes and we'd go to work. We were like a crew. Mm-hmm. We'd go to work together. We'd hang out after work.
So what I was going to ask next is one movie I'd never seen you talk about that I was really curious was Crazy Times, the same year that you got American.
Yeah, we shot the television pilot of Greatest American Hero. And then my agent said they want you for Crazy Times to go in and audition. And me and David Caruso went in and we did one of the scenes from the movie, and we both got it. And then Ray Liotta was on a soap opera, one of the New York soap operas. He came out, and again, it was 3 young guys. They're a little older than me. I was 22. They were like 25, 26. But we right away we were running wild in Hollywood, and we were having some crazy times. I think that might have been David's first job. But like I say, Ray was on a soap opera and I was on Greatest American Hero. So, confidence was high. We had popped our cherries. We knew how to do this. Mm-hmm. So we were having a great time. Lee Phillips directed it. And I think one of the writers or producers later got caught for, so he got arrested for something. So, well, we shot it in, all around LA, Santa Monica, Venice. It was a great experience. Again, 3 wild young guys. And it was supposed to be Brooklyn in the, mid-50s. And we shot, we shot Santa Monica and Venice for Rockaway, which is, another beach town. Nobody thinks of Rockaway Beach being, just a subway ride from Brooklyn or Manhattan. But, they actually surf in Rockaway. So it's the ocean's the ocean. I mean, the Atlantic, the Pacific is a little different, I guess.
I know that was one of Talia Balsam's first credits, too.
Talia Balsam, yeah, right. She played Ray's girlfriend. And Amy Madigan played my girlfriend, who later was in Streets of Fire, playing McCoy.
Right. Yeah. Is there a standout story that you have like on set or anything for Crazy Times? Like a highlighted memory?
Well, let's see. You know, playing football in the sand, you know, it was just kind of funny. You know, I guess the dance sequence. Oh, I know. Oh, here we are. We're shooting on the back lot at Warner Brothers, you know, and we're shooting on New York Street. And they have this big scene where we stumble upon this, you know, like jazz club. And, you know, everybody's standing around and not quite figuring out how we're going to get from one point to the other. And I said, look, I'll grab a bag of peanuts from this guy. I'll tell David to go wide. And we throw the bag. The bag lands in the you know, where the stairs go down. And there we are. We're at the club. You know, and it just fucking came off the top of my head. And it was like, they're trying to figure out, how do we get these guys from the subway stairs to over there? What's going to motivate them? And I said, we're fucking around. We're wild guys. We're going to the village. We're from fucking Brooklyn. So it's very exciting. So that was kind of cool. It was like, you know, sometimes when they let you go, you know, and they ask you, I mean, what did I know? I'm 22. I was, you know, 6 months from working in a kitchen, you know, and it was just like, that's all it was. That's all it was. It was a very inspirational, fertile, you know, environment for inspiration because we were so relaxed and so confident in the roles. It was like we knew what we were doing, and we were just kids, really. You know, we weren't getting a lot. We didn't need a lot of direction. It was all kind of technical stuff, but you know, the motivation that an actor needs to go from one point to another or to get involved in something. I mean, that's what scenes are usually about, right? So that was a good thing.
And when you were in that same period prior to Eddie and the Cruisers, when you were on Greatest American Hero, and were you constantly auditioning for other projects?
Well, when I was on Greatest American Hero, no, because, you know, I had to be available at any moment, you know, because they didn't know what day we were going to work.
Right.
You know, it was like we worked 1 or 2 days an episode. But, you know, your agents also don't want to spread, they want to get their other clients working also. So when we were shooting the second season of Greatest American Hero, we went down to the Caribbean, St. Croix. Yep. You know, I don't know how, it was like Billy Cat takes his problem kids and his girlfriend and Robert Culp. We all go down to the Caribbean. And, you know, Faye is a singer in a band. I'm just there. I'm like a waiter. It was like, you know, they just wanted to get the fuck out of LA. And it was a great adventure there. But on the way back, we fly from LA, New York to, I think straight into St. Croix. We might have stopped in Puerto Rico. But on the way back, me and Don know that we don't have to work until the following Thursday. So we get off the plane in New York and we go and crash with my brother and, you know, on the Lower East Side. And while I'm there, my agent said, why did you get off the plane? And I said, we don't have to work till Thursday. And she said, well, you're not supposed to do that. You're not really allowed to do that because you're on call, because you're on a television series. You know, Michael, this is you know, you got to be more professional. And I said, all right. Should we get to the next flight? She says, well, I got you a meeting with the director. And you got to pick up the script today and then meet him tomorrow. And we'll see. So I picked up the script. I sat and read the script, and it was Eddie and the Cruisers. So the next day, I thought, what the fuck are they giving me this for? I don't know anything about rock and roll or music or performing or stuff like that. I just got done doing an episode of Greatest American Hero where when they said, what do you want to do? And I said, maybe I could be your manager. But Faye was a real singer. Don really played guitar. Jesse, he could fake the piano. He was like 30. He was like, you know, almost 10 years older than all of us and doing it a lot longer. But I said, I'm not a musician. I'm not going to be in the band. Well, when I went in to meet Marty Davidson, he asked me, and I just said what he wanted to hear. He said, do you ever play a musical instrument? I said, yeah, I play guitar, man. And he says, are you good? And I said, well, you know, you think Jimi Hendrix is good? And he goes, and do you sing? I said, well, I'm kind of like Sinatra. Yeah. You know, I got chops. Anyway, he said, okay. So I go back to my brother's apartment, and we're hanging around having a great time for the weekend. I get a call from my agent saying, Marty's coming out to L.A. They want to meet you again. They want to do this improv and all this other crap. And so I, now I'm back in California, and I meet with Marty 2 or 3 times. He's trying to cast the movie. It was Tom Berenger kind of came on at the last moment. Ellen Barkin did also, because the story revolved around this guy that everybody hated, Eddie Wilson, who was this arrogant rock and roll guy. And the real story was that they all learned from me, not about music or being great musicians, but about, that it was a chapter in their life and now they're grown-ups. Anyway, I have a lot of stories about this, but that's pretty much how I got Eddie and the Cruisers. Finally, they made the offer. My contract said, you're lucky to be in the fucking movie. I didn't get paid anything, just scale. But it was exciting. It was exciting. It was a genuine movie. We were going to shoot for 40 shooting days, which is incredible, to me at that time. We shot an episode of Greatest American Hero in 6 or 7 days. We shot Crazy Times in 18 days. And here we are, 40 shooting days. This is a real movie. But here's a funny story. So when I was working at Tavern on the Green, me and my girlfriend lived on 101st Street, right? And let's see, her girlfriend lived like around the block, and her boyfriend, my girlfriend's boyfriend, was one of the grips that I would see at the bar where Anita was. Mm-hmm. So a grip is the guy who does everything but touches the electricity. He pushes the camera dolly. They put up flags to change the quality of the light and shit like this. Jimmy Grubel. So anyway, we get to New Jersey. I'm walking into the Rickshaw Hotel where they put us, and there's Jimmy Grubel. He says, Mike, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm working. He says, how's the food? I said, what do you mean? He says, you're working here. You're working in a restaurant, right? And I said, no, man, I'm Eddie. So Jimmy Grubel only knew me as a cook. And here he's the dolly grip on Eddie and the Cruisers. So right away, I was in with the crew because I knew Jimmy for 2 years.
Right.
Anyway, that was, that's one of the New York coincidences. He knew me as Mike, and he's his boyfriend who worked at Tavern on the Green. And then he meets me at the Rickshaw as Mike, Eddie from Eddie and the Cruisers. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I think it's an amazing story. Jimmy the crew all were very kind to me, very forgiving, because again, going from Greatest American Hero, which was 1 or 2 days, a couple of lines every episode, was a world apart from playing the lead in a movie, right? So when I got on the set, I was kind of embraced by the crew. They knew that I was one of the good guys. Oh.
And didn't you screen test with Joyce Heiser for Eddie?
Who?
She was the original. She was supposed to play
Joyce.
Yeah, she was supposed to play Joanne.
Oh, right. The legend was that she was one of Bruce Springsteen's girlfriends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was more like an improv session. I don't think they filmed us.
Oh, okay.
It was me, Matthew Lawrence, Joyce, and that's it. It was just the 3 of us. Matthew was really tight with Marty Davidson, and they were buddies from somewhere. I think they knew each other from Queens. But I didn't know who was going to play Joanne Carlino until I got to New Jersey.
Okay.
But the funny thing about that is Helen Schneider was a girl from Queens. And when she was in high school, the music teacher, George Nasser, they kind of fell in love, and they ran away together. And they went to Woodstock, and, she became a very successful rock and roll star in Germany. She was offered a contract by Weintraub. I forget which one. His part of Jay and the Americans. It was a doo-wop group in the 60s, right? And then there was Southside Johnny, who was, that Jersey sound. Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes, George Thorogood. Bruce Springsteen, to Billy Joel. It was all that similar sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't really know if they were going to be a doo-wop group or rock and roll, and what kind of rock and roll, until, you know, like a week before I had to do the first show. We flew up to somewhere in Connecticut to see this band that Kenny Vance knew about called Beaver Brown. And we went up, we went in the bar, we saw the show, and they decided, okay, that's it. Now, in the book, Eddie and the Cruisers, the guy, the author of the book, Frank, I forget his last name. But anyway, he had the poem Dark Side. The lyrics were in the story. It was like a major part of the story. It was Dark Side. It was supposed to be like, you know, it was in the book. They used Walt Whitman as the poet for the inspiration, because he was also from New Jersey, right? Mm-hmm. Walt Whitman. Marty came up with Rimbaud because he was a tortured, angry soul. And, you know, that was much more poetic than, you know, Walt Whitman was, you know, some people believe that he was like not just a poet and a writer, but like he was spiritually motivated. You know, some people get their inspiration out of chaos. This is why drugs and alcohol is a big part of the entertainment industry. And they look at it desperately. I got to be inspired. I got inspired. And they throw themselves into chaos. Other people prepare in a much more different way. They set up, you know, the whole world of the story and of what's motivating the characters. And then they get quiet and inspiration bubbles up instead of comes out of a storm. You know, one of the things that people say, you know, in an orderly, constructive way, trying to cultivate inspiration, you're going to hit many doubles and triples and a few home runs. And from chaos, waiting for inspiration to come out of chaos, you might hit a home run once in a while, but you'll very rarely get on base. It's a home run or nothing. You know, people say, well, you know, Babe Ruth, he struck out more than anybody else, but he also hit more, you know, home runs. You know, it's a funny thing. I think the longevity, you know, I've been doing this for Greatest American Hero went on the air in 1980. This is 2021. It's going to be 2022. And I've got like 3 jobs lined up. So I'll have been in the business working for 41 years. And I kind of attribute that to, I have a much safer way to cultivate inspiration. You know, I guess everybody, you know, out of fear or not sure exactly where that inspiration comes from, tries to drinking and, you know, smoking reefer and, you know, rambling on about incoherent shit. And then hopefully an idea comes. But it's not dependable. You know, you can come up with complete nonsense. So anyway, I got my shit together like 3 years after I was in Hollywood. I figured, all right, let's fucking cool it on all the crazy behavior and go back to class. And, you know, ever since then, when I'm not in the studio, I was working with this guy, this great fucking guy that actually Ray Liotta told me about, Harry Master George, who's another brilliant acting teacher and coach, but gets much less publicity because he's just not that guy. But, you know, I kind of approach, you know, my work like a piano player, like a musician or a martial artist, that you got to practice. You got to stay in shape. And the longer you stay in shape, the more you get blessed or gifted or whatever you want to call it. You know, there's a lot of luck involved, or magic, or blessings. I don't know what you want to call it, but there's a lot of work also. Harry said, you know, like he would quote Einstein and other great people, and, you know, that thing about 95% perspiration and 5% inspiration. You know, if you're betting on inspiration and you're not putting in any work, you know, I don't think there's much there. But if you do all the work and you just have a little bit of inspiration, I think it's more interesting on camera and on stage. Right. You know, I've done like 2, 3, 4 plays. But, you know, theater, even though it's really the thing to do as an actor, you know, I do this for a living. You know, I raised a son. He's going to be 28 this summer. I've been married 28 years. I got my shit together because, I've got my craft and I approach it like a craft. It's not, the way I got here seems magical, but, I quickly realized that there's a craft to this, and it's better to keep polishing what they pay you to do.
And could you personally relate to the character at all of Eddie Wilson?
Well, at the time, I didn't realize because, Marty posed this question because we had like 2 weeks of improv. He says, each once in a while, I substitute teaching this acting class for this guy I work with sometimes. And the thing I said, a career, you've got to want to be great. You've got to want to be great because that's what will motivate you. That's what will get you to really do your job, is the desire to be great. Nobody can teach you how to be rich and famous, but the basic necessity is you got to want to be great at something. And that was Eddie Wilson. And he even has that line. He says, we're just a couple of guys from Jersey. And he said, I want to be great. I want to do something nobody's ever done before. And that was something I could relate to, yeah.
I did see in an interview that you did in the late 80s that you mentioned that you made an album of your own, like doing your own singing, but it was never released. Was that true or no?
Yeah, these wise guys came to me. And I say wise guys because, they found this stooge and got like 150 grand from him. And they were from Hoboken. And it was the guy who brought the Beatles to Yankee Stadium. So they were legitimate guys, but, a lot of people in the music business are just one breath away from being, con men. Mm-hmm. So I went to New York, recorded like 7 songs. They didn't give me any choice. I didn't get to choose the songs. I didn't get to, they just said, all right, come on, we're going to put this on tape. And they stole the money.
Oh,
they stole the money. But I did sing in a movie called Raging Angels. I do a song called The Hunger, and we performed that live. And, it's a movie called Raging Angels. I play a demon. And I'm doing a concert about the one world government, and I'm promoting the one world government. So did I ever really sing? Yeah. Yeah, in that movie. That's me singing. That's my voice.
That's cool. And was there any difficulty initially to lip sync all the songs in both movies, or did that take easily too?
It was kind of magic because, like I said, we didn't have the songs until like a couple of days before I had to shoot it. Mm-hmm. So, it really was fucking magic. And the day before I had to do that first concert at Haverford, where I do Dark Side of 10 Years, I forget which one it was. Matthew Lawrence was performing, contemporary song. He was playing like, the old Long Tall Sally Amato. And I went to watch him do it, and he was good lip syncing and all that stuff. And so Marty sees that I'm there, and he comes over. I'm with Tunes, the saxophone player. And in front of like a room full of people, he threatens me. He says, let me tell you something, kid. I know you're not working, and you lied to me. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. Well, tomorrow's your day. And if you fuck up, you're fired. We got a real rocker in a hotel just waiting to go on. So that was the direction for the direction I got. I know he was playing some kind of psychological game, and I guess that's how some people work. And, hey, I got up on stage and they started the click track, and bam, I hit that first heartbeat, and I never got off. For another funny story about that, I had to do this monologue at the concert. Hey, man, you got some fine college here? That's my voice too, right? So this is in post, and we're doing, where you have to replace some of the dialogue. So he wants to replace that whole monologue. And, he had blocked out like a whole day because it's like a 2-page monologue, right?
Mm.
It seems like a long thing, but it probably wasn't that long. And so I get there, you know, and he's like, okay, I'm going to take a piss and then we're going to get to work. That's kind of how I remember his voice, right? And I had done ADR because of Greatest American Hero. So I said to the engineer, I said, just run it. He said, what? I said, just run it. Let me see if I can do it all at once. So he runs it, and I hit every fucking phrase and syllable right on. Clean through. Boom. Marty comes back from the bathroom. He says, okay, let's get to work. And the engineer says, Marty, you got to listen to this. Says, what do I got to listen to? And he says, listen to what he just did. And he plays it, and it's fucking spot on. And Marty's jaw dropped. Funny, you know, when we were doing Greatest American Hero, Don Cervantes turned me on to Dungeons and Dragons. And when the first Apple computers came out, he disappeared. He got himself an Apple computer, and he learned how to play Dungeons and Dragons on that. And he was like one of the first gamers I ever knew.
Oh, it's funny.
It was like, this is fucking crazy, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask because wasn't it? Yeah, was it true that Rick Springfield was supposed to play Eddie?
Well, he was gonna. That was the legend that he was gonna replace me.
Mm-hmm.
If I fucked up that day. I never met him, you know, but that was the legend that we got a real rock. Rick Springfield's at the hotel.
And so right after that,
but I know Kenny Vance wanted Eddie to be a doo-wop singer, and Southside Johnny wanted him to be, you know, like a real Jersey rock and roller. And then they ended up using an actor, you know, and it was like, I don't know, it worked out.
And so right after that would have been Streets of Fire. Was that a really involved audition process?
No, I went from Eddie and the Cruisers to Australia to do, you know, because, you know, anyway, I went to Australia to do a period piece. It was supposed to be 1922. And they brought me over to teach them how to promote their line of ladies' underwear. It was called the Burley. It was Burley, but when I got there, we turned it to Burley. I teach them marketing. You know, it was like glitz and glamour. It was kind of like a cross between P.T. Barnum and, you know, and some marketing genius. But it was a period thing. It was the first time I left the country. I went all the way to, I was there for 10 weeks. It's another very artsy kind of production. The guy who directed it was David Stevens. And he had this rehearsal hall, and he had all the sets taped out. We rehearsed it like it was a theater piece. And it was really a wonderful experience. But again, you know, I think I was 23. Maybe I was almost 24, I guess. They were right around that age. So it was still like, you know, wild times. You know, it was, you know, they gave me fucking like $1,000 a week just to spend. And, you know, I got a big salary, and, you know, I'm in Australia, my first time overseas. And when I was over there, they started sending me the script for Streets of Fire. And I had seen Hard Times, so I knew who Walter Hill was. But they said this was a big budget movie. It was an action movie. And, you know, I'm thinking, oh, I want to be like, you know, I want to be like Montgomery Clift or Marlon Brando. I want to, you know, do these kind of movies. And my agents weren't, you know, they said, just fucking do what you're told, kid. Come on, this is a big movie. When I got back from Australia, like a week later, I met with Walter and Joel, and Rick Moranis was there. The actress who was in Splash, the blonde girl, Daryl Hannah, was going to play Ellen Aim. And we all were sitting around, and they were trying to figure out how we worked, you know, physically together, and talking about wardrobe and all this shit. And, you know, Diane and Daryl Hannah were both up for the same parts. And by the time, you know, we got done with wardrobe fittings, you know, Diane had decided to do Streets of Fire because she wanted to, you know, play. She had played a rock star before. She was in a movie called The Fabulous Stains. Yep. So she was very comfortable on stage. So she was excited, and there I am with the 17-year-old Diane Lane, who was super hot, beautiful. She was a cross between, she was a classic. She was like deadly sexy, but had, this air of innocence about her. She had done a movie with Laurence Olivier called Little Angels or Little Romance.
Mm-hmm.
She'd been on Broadway in a play by Elizabeth Swados called Runaways. So I was completely outclassed by her. Not that I was in competition with her, but I was completely intimidated. It's beautiful. I mean, there were days where we had a whole mob on the set. And when Diane walked by, like people would, when she got further enough where they said, wow, she's so fucking hot. Oh my God. It was like, that was Streets of Fire. It was a big Hollywood movie. The one in Australia was low, but it was, medium for the time. I think the budget was like $3 or $4 million, but this was like a $26 million movie on the back lot.
Mm-hmm.
They spent $2 million just covering up the street, with the tarp, because they didn't want to shoot nights the whole fucking time. So, and Walter was a writer-director. I don't think, and he was not obligated to. I mean, he's the fucking boss. He created the whole thing. But I was a kid, and I needed help. On Eddie and the Cruisers, I had George Nasser. Mm-hmm. In Australia, I was kind of on my own. And, because I was American, I was a novelty, and I couldn't really fuck up. But on Streets of Fire, it was like, whoa. I was intimidated. And, the idea of just, being in a big action movie, I didn't quite get it. I knew how to prepare for like dramatic scenes and stuff, but, if you think about it, there were no long scenes. Anyway, I went from Streets of Fire and then right away Philadelphia Experiment.
Yep. Did you have a preference of like, were you more comfortable on Philadelphia Experiment in comparison?
The thing about Philadelphia Experiment is I had read the book.
Okay.
My brother was an engineer. He went to RPI, Rensselaer's, right? And so he came home from engineering school with that book, The Philadelphia Experiment. And so I had read that when I was like a freshman in high school. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. So when they gave me the script and said it was John Carpenter, I thought, wow, science fiction. This is fun. It wasn't just an action movie. I understood what that movie was about. I didn't realize that Streets of Fire was like a myth or parable or, I didn't realize that there are big messages behind action movies. Mm-hmm. And halfway through the movie, Andy Laszlo said, this is like Helen of Troy. And I said, how so? He said, the princess is kidnapped by the opposing force, and you have to go rescue him to create peace in the world. And I was like, wow. Andy, was I don't know, sometimes some people can convey ideas that I grasp really easily. Mm-hmm. And I know he wasn't like talking to me, trying to help me. He was just like talking, in an artistic sense. And that was when I started to find out that, yeah, there is something more than just an action movie here.
And I know that when you said that you were kind of intimidated by Diane, it seemed like you guys still had immediate chemistry though. Yeah, well, look, being intimidated, you know how you'll see, if you ever been to a dog park, you'll see this big fucking brute of a dog get around like a foxy little beautiful female dog, and they're nervous, but they're still hot for them. That's why they get nervous. It's like, Diane was on Broadway. Yeah, so Diane had been on Broadway. She worked with Laurence Olivier. She was cultivated. She was trained to, she was on the cover of Time magazine when she was like 13, I think. I mean, she was like a certified beautiful woman. Mm-hmm. and a trained actress. Her father was a Shakespearean actor. So, yeah, and I was a thug from New York, fresh out of the kitchen. I was still thinking of myself. When I say intimidated, I said, not really, I was outclassed. Yeah.
Doing Broadway, when you're an actor, and you're an aspiring actor and you work with somebody who's like Billy Cat on Greatest American Hero. We all meet at this burger place across from Paramount. Me and Don and Faye, and I think even Jesse was there. And we're all talking about, oh, this is the read-through. You know, we're going to shoot soon. And they say, did you ever hear anything about Billy Cat? And I said, he was just on Broadway doing Pippin. And it was like, he was on Broadway. You know, that's like the ultimate legit, you know, that's bona fides for young actors. It's like, you get on Broadway. It's like, big deal. Well, Diane did a hit show on Broadway, and it was, you know, she was when she was a little kid. So I was definitely outclassed. Not intimidated. She was a hottie, you know, and but I didn't want to hit on her because, well, for one thing, I was married. But, you know, if you hit on her and they reject you, how do you continue with the movie?
Right.
Right. So it's like I had to treat her with tremendous respect, and I did. You know, I left her alone. But believe me, she was a very attractive girl in a variety of ways. She's beautiful. She's talented. She's funny. And she didn't take herself serious. She didn't act like a diva.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys ever interact in life later on?
No, I bumped into her a couple times. But, you know, I was still like a wild man. And I didn't want to, you know, and she was just like she was like an angel. Mm-hmm. So, no, we never hung out. We never went to. We went to that big market in Vegas. I forget what they call it. And you know, I was with another girl already. You know, I had left my wife. I was with another girl, and no.
Were you friends with Willem Dafoe on set too?
Willem? Well, no. Willem was relatively new to movies at that time. I know him and his wife had this thing called the Wooster Group. You know, where they were doing this experimental theater and multimedia and all this other stuff. I actually worked with another guy who was part of the Wooster Group. He was played the police chief in a pilot I shot in Chicago with Bo Starr. But I think he was relatively new to movies after that. I mean, until Streets of Fire.
And so with the Philadelphia Experiment.
But him too. I think he was like 10 years older than me. He had a wife, and he had you know, almost 10 years older than me. He was married. He had a baby. He was a grown-up already. And I wasn't. So we didn't hang out either. We had dinner once. You know, and I ran into him a few times. We have a bunch of mutual friends. It's a big deal because you're at a different era in your, you know, creative development.
Yeah. And in that same kind of time period, were you, did you get a chance to audition for anything or come close to getting anything that was also a major movie?
We call it Passion of the Christ. I was going to meet with Brian De Palma about a movie, but I was running around with his ex at 2 or 3 Academy Awards. I mean, he's a certified genius. And I passed because my management was telling me, no, he's a madman. He's crazy. He's a writer. He's not a director. You'll get in trouble. You'll get arrested. You know, and I said, finally, I had to call Oliver and tell him that, you know, I can't do it. My girlfriend hated him because she knew him from working with Brian on Scarface. Oh, my agent hated him because he talked to me directly. My manager didn't trust him. It was like, you know, and this was a mistake that I made because I was trying to take the advice of my agent, manager, girlfriend, and it was like, what a fucking mistake. I should have stayed a young cowboy instead of trying to be a good boy.
So that was like the biggest experience you had where you came close to getting something major potentially.
Yeah.
And so I know I did want to ask too about World Gone Wild because I did interview Catherine Mary Stewart a while ago.
Oh yeah, she's a doll. She was a real sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on my second wife then, and Bruce Dern was great. You know, there's another situation where I knew that this guy had so much talent. You had to love him and respect him, and I did. And you know, we have the same manager now. we still, when we see each other, it's like, it was a good memory working with him. What did Catherine say? You didn't want to ask about it because you already talked to Catherine about it? Well, she didn't like it?
Oh, no, she said it was a really, like, fun and, wild experience with the kind of set and plot that movie was.
Out in Tucson, in the desert of Tucson.
Yeah.
Yeah. The desert in Tucson where they had those Segura cactuses, that looked like the ones in the cartoons.
And so with the second Eddie movie, was that your decision or were you just approached or?
My agent and manager thought it, you see, this was it. I was trying to be a good boy and do what I was told. When they first approached me, I couldn't figure out why it wasn't Marty. The Scotti brothers are real gentlemen and they're very serious guys, but they're not filmmakers, right? So on the first one, they hired actors to act like musicians. On the second one, they hired musicians and tried to get them to act. So we never really had that cohesiveness of the band. Marina Orsini was a beautiful and talented French-Canadian actress. She was a fucking knockout. But, she was a big star in Montreal. Mm-hmm. And, we shot it in Montreal. And here, I'll give you the feeling. I come on the set, and the cinematographer comes up to me and he says, there's no smoking on my set. I said, what do you mean? No smoking. And I said, I smoke. He said, you cannot smoke. And I said, well, fuck this. I'm going home then. I'm Eddie. Eddie smokes. You can't tell me not to smoke. And so it was like right away, confrontation.
Oh.
And Tony Scotti came in between. Whoa, Michael, hang on. Right? And when Tony says take it easy, you take it easy because he's one of these guys from Philadelphia, right? And he would text me aside. He says, Michael, just take it easy. We'll straighten this out. And suddenly, when the camera's rolling, I could smoke. And that's the only deal I wanted. I wasn't going to put it in his face, but that was the first day on that set. And, for some reason, I'll never understand why, people will take a job if they hate the idea. Like the director says to me, I really don't like this kind of music. It's not for me. I just wanted to do a big American movie. And I'm like, holy shit. I'd rather be with a tyrant than somebody who's, what was that called? Doesn't really care. Apathetic. Like, I just want to spend, because I think they spent like $7 million on that. The record, was double. We had twice as many songs. Anyway, it was like, I just wanted to spend, American money and make a big movie. And I'm like, man, I'm gambling a lot by, the reputation of the first one on this. And the first one was a great dramatic piece. The second one, there was a lot more songs. And to be honest, a lot of Eddie and the Cruisers fans loved it because we had a lot more rock and roll performances.
Yep.
Bernie Colson. Hang on. I'm getting messages from New York. Bernie Colson played like the second lead in that. It was me, Bernie, and Marina Orsini. And, that was it was okay. It was okay. It wasn't what I thought it could be because, like I say, the real artists are constantly in search of inspiration and trying to find a dependable means of cultivating inspiration. Writer's block, painters looking for something to paint, right? Directors finding a story they needed to tell, and that's what I thought Eddie and the Cruisers should always be about, because that line, I want to be great, or I don't want to do this anymore. I only want to do this if I can be great. And trying to be great was what Eddie Wilson and Eddie and the Cruisers was all about. And the second one, they didn't want to hear that artsy shit. They didn't want to hear it. So that was that experience.
Was there ever any potential idea for a third movie after that or no?
Yeah. Me and a friend of mine wrote a third one, and it's floating around. And there's some people who find it interesting, but it all comes down to. And then Jim Steinman died because I kept saying, if we could get Jim Steinman to write a couple songs for Eddie Wilson, we'd have Eddie 3.
Yep.
And he died. So I got, maybe someone like Billy Joel could do it. It would have to be like an opera, because that's what Season in Hell was supposed to be like,
Yeah.
It was supposed to be like a rock opera, like, like what Queen did, those guys, there has to be a great song. Even though on Eddie and the Cruisers 1, they didn't have the song. Tender Years and Wild Summer's Nights had already been released as on a 45. I had a copy of the 45 somewhere, but it was released like in the early 70s.
Yep.
So those songs were released. They weren't hits, but when we did them in the movie, they became hits. But we needed someone like Jim Steinman or Billy Joel, that great. So we're looking, but the script is great, and I'm really happy with it. And people read it and they say, we just gotta get that fucking song.
Yeah. I know that since Jim wrote some of the songs that were in Streets of Fire, did you ever get to meet him?
Yeah. Yeah, I met Steinman in the recording studio when they were, finishing it up, and had dinner with him. And, you got to realize this guy is another fucking certified genius.
Yeah.
Bad Out of Hell. I mean, that was great, man. That was really great. All the songs he did with Meatloaf were great.
Mm-hmm.
And, you had Jim Steinman with Jimmy Iovine. I mean, the Streets of Fire album, that also went platinum. So, come on.
And so, moving into some of your roles in the 90s, what was it like working with Dennis Hopper on Sunset Heat?
Dennis was great, man. It's another one of those situations where you're working with a fucking genius. He was like the face and the sound and the voice of the 60s. I mean, come on, he's Dennis Hopper. And then he goes and does, with Francis Ford Coppola, Apocalypse Now. I mean, He was it. And he is, you look in his eyes, there's genius there. We went over to his house in Venice, me, the director, Luca Berkovic, he was playing the sheriff. And, the director wants to talk about the movie. And Dennis is like, all right, what do you want to talk about? John Nicolella was his name, right? He was like a line producer on Miami Vice, right? And this is Dennis Hopper you're talking to, and John says, all right, let's go over the poem, because Dennis Hopper's character is supposed to, recite a poem in the movie. Dennis says, what do you mean? Well, let's just go over the poem. He says, go ahead. And John starts to read the poem from the script. And Dennis says, get the fuck out of here. We're not doing this. You're not telling me what to do. What do you mean you're going to direct me on how to read a poem? No, forget it, man. That ain't happening. There's a bit at the party where the girls coming around with a tray of chocolates, and John wanted to show Dennis how to play the comedy of the chocolates, and Dennis threw a fit. No, man, you want to do it that way? You do it. You're not. No, man, that ain't happening, man. And it's like that wasn't a character in Apocalypse Now. That was Dennis. If you got him riled up, he was like very serious. He was like a 60s icon because he was that voice. It wasn't an imitation. That when people are talking about the 60s, So, but he and we got along. He had this buddy with him. I don't know who the fuck he was, but he had this weird name. And I said, so what's your name? And he says, Chemo. And I said, Chemo? Your mother named you Chemo? And Dennis laughs. And he said, well, no, it's the name I gave myself. Because, it's like, it was obviously a made up name. And, Dennis and I had this fight scene, and this is funny. In the movie, I dig this pit, right, that I'm going to pop up in and shoot at the bad guys. Mm-hmm. But they did it on a beach, and they didn't account for the tide, right? So they dug the pit and things get postponed and pushed around, and we got to do it after lunch. And by the time we're ready to shoot it, the tide has come in and filled the pit with the ocean. And it's, Dennis found that very amusing that, hey, man, you can tell nobody's in charge here. Nobody thought, hey, this is an ocean. The ocean does what it wants. It doesn't care what your schedule says, man. You can say, oh, no, the ocean will have to wait, but that ain't going to happen, man. This is the way it is. There's the God, there's the ocean, there's nature, and then there's Hollywood. Dennis is... it was like working with Bruce Dern or with Roy Scheider, or I worked with Rod Steiger, and I worked with Malcolm McDowell. I worked with some like real fucking icons, and it was, I've had a great time in this business, man. I just want to push it another 10 years, and then I'll probably get out.
Your role in Bad Moon is really fun, and seeing you get to play a werewolf and a bad guy.
He's one of my favorite directors because he trusted that I would give that performance. I met him for lunch, again, at the Warner Brothers lot. And, I had read the script, and, we have lunch, and we're talking with him and his partner. And I say, so, Eric, before we even talk, then we just start talking lightly about this and that. He wants to see what I'm going to be like, I guess. And I said, so what's next? Who do I got to meet? What do I got to do to get? And I said, yes. When, and he gave me the role without me auditioning, without me doing that before we started shooting. And I'll tell you, we're going to have 4 days where you have to do the prosthetics. And the prosthetics take 8 hours. And I said, you're kidding. He says, no. And I said, and then what? He said, and then you got to shoot for 12 hours. And I said, how many days? He said, 4. And I said, can I sleep in the trailer? And he says, yes. So I'd go in. The first day I'd go in, and they'd gluing the shit on and painting the stuff on. And it was like very elaborate. It wasn't like a suit, which is probably why it worked so well. We did have a suit for the stuntman to wear. And Eric loves telling the story about seeing this depressed werewolf, because the stunt guy was always complaining how hot it was and the head was heavy. And he was like, this very sad werewolf, where I was like, excited to get this shit glued on. So 8 hours of gluing this on, and the hair and the eyes and the teeth and all the hands and all that shit. And then, I'd be, on the set, very excited and having a great time. And then, it was 4 hours to get it on and 4 hours to take it off. So it was a total of 8 hours in makeup, right? So 4 hours, we shoot all day, then 4 hours to take it off. I'd have 2 beers and fall asleep and wake up and have 3 double espressos while they were putting it on. And then we'd shoot. And technically that was very demanding, but I was so excited to be in a werewolf movie, which I knew was going to be really, really good. Mm-hmm. So that was Bad Moon. And then Eric hired me again to play a ghost in 100 Feet with Famke Janssen. We shot that in Hungary, and that's where I met one of my best friends now, Ken Kelsch, who's a cinematographer. He shot most of Abel Ferrara's good movies. And we still talk. We talk all the time. He's a great guy, as a warrior and a poet and all that other stuff. So, Eric is a great chapter in my career. And I, we still are in contact occasionally. He wants to do a couple movies, and I would tell him, I said, Eric, I'll play anything you want. Just let's work together again.
And so one of the last things I wanted to ask you about was your part in Virgin Suicides. Obviously, it's small, but it's really impactful.
Yeah, I was already working in Toronto at the time on a movie with Billy D. Williams and Patrick Bergin and Fred Roos. I had auditioned for Coppola when I was really young. And, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I didn't realize, I was going on, bluster rather than being focused. Anyway. So Fred Roos called me up. He said, Michael, I got a couple days on a movie that Sophia's doing. And I said, yes, of course. Are you kidding? So they sent me the script, and I think the character's name is Trip, right?
Yeah.
The young Trip. And, it's about a guy who, he's a fucked up kid. He gets the the beautiful young girl drunk, takes her virginity, leaves her passed out on the football field, turns on the sprinkler. And, the next time you see him, he's in a rehab, in a detox. It's kind of evidence of what a fucked up person he was. And I'm doing my best, to get my life back together, but it's 20 years later. And that was the character. I remember, so there was this woman roaming around the set with a handheld video camera. And, and I said, what is this about? Because the EPKs were relatively new at the time. And I said, what are you doing this for? And she says, oh, don't mind me. I'm Sophia's mom. I'm just shooting behind the scenes. So it was, Francis Coppola's wife was doing the EPK. And, the thing about Italian people, no matter, in my experience, no matter what level of accomplishment they are at, they're still family. I'm Sophia's mom, not Francis's wife, not, Mrs. Coppola or Dom Coppola, whatever they would say, Donna Coppola. She was Sophia's mom. And, I wish I had gotten a chance to work with Francis but everything happens for a reason. I was too young to really appreciate it.
When you mentioned auditioning for him, was it for The Outsiders or Rumblefish or something like that?
For The Outsiders, exactly. The Outsiders. We want, hanging out in this soundstage for like 9 hours before, anybody in charge talked to me. And I just shot the pilot of Greatest American Hero or something like that. And I was still doing the Tony Villicana thing, but hey, what's going on here? Come on. Hey man, what's going on? You want me to just read this stuff? Nobody, young people need management, because for psychological reasons. Mm-hmm. Older actors need it for business reasons.
I guess I like to end every interview I do with asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
I survived Hollywood. I was a good father. My son is a happy, well-balanced human being with a great career ahead of him in computer science. And I didn't leave any casualties. I'm relatively a kind, compassionate, hardworking motherfucker. Mm-hmm. And I want to be directing this year, so who knows? Maybe I'll get to direct an important movie.
Is that your first opportunity that you've gotten to direct anything?
Yeah. Well, I suppose I could have done it earlier, but I really wasn't ready. Now I am.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that we got to do this despite all the hiccups that happened.
No problem, man. Okay, Chris. Take care, man. Have a good one. Thank you.
Yeah, you too.